In this video, I'll show you how to shape, rotate, translate, and add gradients to elements in CSS, as well as more. So, I'm going to be making a basic web page using HTML. I'm using something called Emmet, which makes it much quicker like this. I'll hopefully cover Emmet in a future video. So, I'm naming this CSS positions and more. And please remember to like and subscribe if you like the video. So you'll see that it's come up here, the title, and I'm going to use more Emmet, just to make it very quick. So, heading saying CSS positions plus more, and I'm going to save that H1. Now I'm just going to add 5 paragraphs, and those 5 paragraphs are going to be lorem ipsum. Developers normally like lorem ipsum because it's just a way of making lots of text, even though it's in Latin. So I'm just going to put that there. So I've got 50 words long, each of them. There. So you've got this. This is the these are the paragraphs. So in the head, I'm also going to add a style element. This is there. That is where all the CSS code will go. So the first element we need to add is going to be a navy blue square. I'm going to put a div element there, and I'm just going to name it element 1, and I'm going to give it an ID of E1 there. Save, reload, nothing's happened to the element yet. So I get it using the selector #E1. If I put that there, you'll see nothing has happened to it yet. But what I need to do is start adding CSS code. So add a background color of navy, a color which is a text color of white, and there. So I've got that. I'm going to also resize it using the height and width. I'm going to set a height of 100 pixels and a width of 100 pixels. I shall end up with a navy blue square like this. So we don't need to worry about styling the text today. I'll be doing that in other videos, but I'm going to add a gradient. So there's no need for the background color, but it's good if the web browser doesn't support gradients. But underneath that, I'm putting a comment in the CSS. I can put gradient. This is a linear gradient. Now, this time, rather than saying background color, I just use background, and I type linear gradient. Now, this is called a CSS function. It takes in values to know what colors to put in the gradient, because at the moment it doesn't know what I want in my linear gradient. So I can add some colors like light blue. There, that's just light blue, but it needs more colors. That's why it's not showing me anything. So say I put light blue, gold, navy. There. So it automatically goes in that direction. But say I want it to go from left to right, or maybe even the top left corner to the bottom right corner. The way I do that is I use some degrees. So 0 degrees is going straight up. Because say you've got like a compass here, 0 degrees will be heading north. So if you go through the colours, light blue, gold, navy, they're going north. Say this time I want them to go southeast. Well, 90 degrees is left, right, and 180 degrees is down. So I need to get something in the middle, which would be 135 degrees. So I'll place 135 degrees there. Save, Control S, reload, Control R, and I've got that. That's good. I'm just going to add a navy before the light blue so it's easier to see the text. So you can put as many colours as you want, but if you put too many it starts to get a bit crowded. So, the next thing I'm going to do is add a different type of gradient. I'm going to add a red circle. Well, it will start as being a square and it will become a circle in the future. So I'm going to add it after that paragraph. It should appear here or here. They're the same place. If I change the name that to element 2 and copy the exact same code for the element 1, but just naming it E2 there. At the moment, they should be exactly the same. But I don't want that. I want a radial gradient, and I want the background color to be red. So this time, the function is called radial gradient, like this. Rather than linear gradient, which goes in a line, radial gradient goes out from the centre and doesn't need a degrees number. See, I save that. I've got a radial gradient going out of the set from the centre. That radial gradient can be any colours you want. I'm going to use dark green and red. There. That's nice. I might add before the dark green and yellow. That will make it look good as well. I like experimenting with gradients because if you get the gradient correct, it's very, very good for the visual aspects of a website. Without needing to make your own picture of a gradient, you can get CSS to do it for you, especially if elements are going to change size. So, now I actually need to make them a circle. So this is going to be using a property called border radius. So, border radius adds rounded corners to a shape. For example, if I had a border radius of 5 pixels, remember the measurements, save and reload, you'll see that that's become a rounded corner. From the corner to where it's actually cut off now, it's a radius of 5 pixels. I can change that to 20 pixels if I want, but it just doesn't need text, so you need to make sure you use another thing called padding to add some space between the text and the edge. I covered this earlier, but I'm just showing it again. There. So I've got that, but say I want it to become a circle. You can use %. 50% will become a perfect circle. There. So, I've got a circle for element 2. If you see element 2 is larger than element 1 because the padding has added extra space. I'm just going to add a border radius here as well, but I'm just going to use pixels for reference. Border radius rounded corners. There. I'm going to just choose a number randomly. Border radius 15 pixels. Border radius 15 pixels. There, if I save that and I reload that, you should see 15 pixels border radius. I'm going to add a padding here of 15 pixels to check that the text actually doesn't go out of the element like that. There. So far we've learned border radius and gradients. But there's more to CSS than that. We need to actually start moving them and shaping them. So, I'm going to use another shaping one called clip path. Clip path. And this time I'm going to use a polygon, which is a straight-sided shape. Clip path. So like the gradient, you have clip path property and the polygon function like that. This time in brackets, there are different values, however. Each corner is a percentage from 0% to 100%. And each corner has its own coordinates, x and y. So you'll know that the top left corner is 0, 0. The x goes up that way, and the y number goes up that way. So say we want to just do maybe the top left corner first. 0%, 0%. You put a space and then a comma until when you're going to put new coordinates. So 0%, 0% you've got there. Now you need at least 3 to make a shape. So I'm going to go to the x coordinate of 50 and the y of 0. So 50%, 0%. You shouldn't be able to see anything yet. But say I want to, as here, you've got the y coordinate of 50, the x coordinate of 100. So 100, 50. There. If I reload it, it's made a triangle. Well, I'm just going to continue my logo shape. So I'll get x50, y100, x0, y100, and then x and y both 50. You should get this shape. That. It looks a bit weird because of the rounded corners, but I'm showing that both can be used at once. Also, be aware that clip path cuts off text, so it's better to do on elements without text. So, the border radius is a circle at the moment, but say we delete it. How can we add a circle with clip path? Well, it's still quite easy. It's much easier than the polygon. So I put clip path, circle, not polygon this time, and I put clip path circle. But in brackets I have to put the size of the circle. That's the radius, the distance from the centre to the edge. By default it's 50% of its size, so 50% is exactly the same as that. But you can make it larger, so it gets to 60%, for example. But if you've realised, the 60% edge of a circle here is outside the element's borders, so it makes this sort of cut-off corner look. You can make smaller ones, like 30%, like that. But I'm just going to stick with, for the moment, 52%. That's just like that. There. I'm going to name that a near circle as well, because it's not an exact circle. The next property I'm going to teach you is position. This is how you move elements around a web page. I'm adding position relative to this arrow up here, element 1. If I add this in the properties list, nothing should actually happen, because we have to add different properties to move it. I've added position relative and nothing's happened. But I can add top. This is one that actually moves it. 10 pixels. This moves it down. Let's explain this. Relative means relative to its initial position. So say I comment out this. This is its initial position. And when I add top 10 pixels, its top here should move by 10 pixels. And it moves down because it moves away from its initial position. So if I put that there, I should get the top moving down. But I can also use left to make the left move right. It's a bit weird names. And I'm going to call this 50 pixels. Left 50 pixels. It moves 50 pixels that way. I can change this to whatever I want, 100 pixels even 1,000 pixels. That will move it off the screen. I mean, it already is here. So this is what these do. But these don't do anything to the text and content around it. So I move the top and left by 100 pixels. It will move 100 pixels right and 100 pixels down, but it won't think anything about the text behind it. It will just go straight on top of it, or under it. I'll explain later. So I can change these to make them different values, but relative isn't the only position. There are others. So the next one I'm going to show you is going to be absolute. So position, absolute. And I can add here, position, absolute. There. That now means if I add something like top 0 and left 0, it's gone right to the top left corner of the screen, because it means it's moving absolute on the page, relative to the top left corner. So the space it made in the text has disappeared because it's sort of a separate object to the page now. I can make it move a certain amount of pixels from the top, 10 pixels. So now it's moved 10 pixels down. That number can be very large, but one thing that's notable is that it's not relative to the screen, it's relative to the page. So it's only absolute to the page, not the screen. I can change left as well to make that something like 50 pixels if I want. But with absolute, you just don't just use top and left. You can use bottom and right, but these won't do anything at the moment. They do exactly the same as top and left. These will come into use later. So I'm going to change this so it's 100 pixels from the top and 100 pixels from the left. There, element 2 is on top of element 1. That's probably not a very good thing so you can see them. I'll just move that 50 pixels, there. And maybe make the left 10 pixels. So, next I'm going to show you transform. This is yet another way of moving them. But luckily you don't have to change it for different positions. For example, I can use transform rotate and transform translate. So I'm going to make this rotate. I'm going to make this arrow rotate. Transform is what it's called. There, transform, rotate. And in brackets, like before, with all the other functions like clip path and gradient, I need to put an angle. This is in degrees, so I put deg. 10 degrees maybe, to move 10 degrees clockwise, so they always move clockwise. If you want to move it 10 degrees anti-clockwise, do 360 minus 10, which is 350. There. Or if you want to do it anti-clockwise, use minus numbers. The same effect happens. I might want to do it minus 50 degrees. Or I might want it just to point up at the title. The way I can do that is by changing it to minus 90 degrees. There. I'm going to make it to the point to the word CSS. So that's minus 135 degrees. Minus 135. There. So that's what I've done. I've made it move using transform rotate. But transform is very similar to the transform on maths on graphs. So there's also translate. So, say I want to move it 10 pixels to the right, I can put transform, translate. And then you've got the x and y axes. The x value is how many pixels or what measurement you move it to the right. And the y value is what measurement you move it down. Say I want to move it 10 pixels to the right, 10 pixels down. I can do just that and move it. Say I want to move it very far to the right, maybe even 10,000 pixels to the right. It's done that, and it's gone all the way here. I can even use minus numbers to make it go in the opposite directions. For example, minus 50 pixels should take it minus 50 pixels to the right, 10 pixels to the down. But I'm just going to set this as minus 50 pixels, minus 50 pixels. And I'm going to change these 50 pixels to percent. What this means now is it's minus 50% of its height, of its width to the left, and 50% of its height to the up, which means that its center is positioned on where its top left corner would have been. Say I want to set the top and left both to 0 pixels. You'll see that normally the top left corner, yes, would be up there, but it's not now. So with position absolute, you can change that to 50% and 50%. That would normally make the top left corner here. But this time, it's the center, which is in the center of the screen. And that's because the center is now where the top left would be. If I delete this translate, or not delete, copy it out so you can see it later, the top left corner, although I'm not visible because of the clip path, is in the center of the screen. So that's how you center elements on the screen using transform translate. Now I'm going to show you how to use the position property to make the elements move relative to the screen rather than the page. Because at the moment, when I move the page like this, these elements scroll with it. But what happens if I want to make one, maybe for a navigation bar at the top, which actually sticks with the screen and stays always at the same place in the top, no matter how I scroll? So I'm going to make a new element and call it element 3. And it is going to be up here. It's going to be E3 there, and I'm going to name it element 3. Reload, done. And, I just noticed something. I put CSS potions. This isn't really potions, I'm going to name that positions. There, save, reload. It took me a while to work that out. Next time I shall probably do it quicker. And I'm going to add some code for E3. So, E3 is going to have a background color of dark green. And I make it a navigation bar. So the height is going to be 50 pixels. The color is going to be white. And the background color is going to be dark green up here. I'm going to put the colors together as well, so it's easier to understand, like that. And the width is going to be 100%, so its width is 100% of the screen. On 100%. So at the moment you should just see a navigation bar like that. I can add text align center and other things to make it more like a navigation bar, so I'll just do that now. Padding 5 pixels there. So this is my navigation bar. But at the moment it's difficult to see when I scroll down the page. I want to be able to click the links that will be on there when it's a website. So I need to use a different position to make it stay fixed on the screen. So the position I'm going to add is fixed. Stay fixed on screen. There. So position fixed. At the moment you won't see anything's different, but there's one thing different. Now, rather than changing elements on the page, it just goes straight on top of it. But what happens if I want this corner to be right up here, so there's no white space? The way I do that is like before. Top 0, left 0. Save. So it's now at the top, a navigation bar on the top. So, if I add more text, you'll be able to see how this works. I'm just going to add about 5 paragraphs, so again, yeah, earrum. P times 5, lorem 50. There, so I've added some others. Paragraphs here. And there, so you'll see that element 3 stays at the top like a navigation bar. But what happens if I want to put a title above element 3? So I move this title, and I put it before element 3. You'll see no difference. The title will just be underneath element 3. But I don't want that. I want element 3 to be under the title until I scroll down, and then it should stay at the top. So this way, I'm going to change it to sticky, position sticky, and stick to top of screen. So it's going to stick to the top of the screen. So you'll see, no, not of screen, you'll see, look, at the moment it just looks like it's normal static, which is a normal position. If I move it down, you'll see it sticks to the top of the screen like this. So it's a mixture of fixed and the normal one. So you are maybe thinking, but what if I want a navigation bar at the bottom of the screen? Well, that can be done as well. I'm going to copy element 3, put it here, before the last paragraph, and name it element 4. I'm also going to copy the element 3 code and change the background colour to maroon. Is that a colour? Yeah, maroon. And that's going to be element 4. So at the moment, you'll see the element 4's there. If I add more paragraphs, for example, add 10 with lorem 50 words, there. If I add those paragraphs after element 4, you'll be able to see it act just like element 3 going up to the top. But what if I wanted to stick to the bottom instead of the top? That's possible. Rather than saying top, I say bottom, and I can say right instead of left if I want. But I'm just going to stick with left. Stick to bottom there. So you'll see now it's at the bottom until I've scrolled down, and because it's sticky, it sticks back into place here. So you'll see element 3 is stuck to the top of the screen and element 4 is stuck to the bottom. So you can use top, left, bottom and right to make elements stick, and what I like about this is it makes CSS just a little bit more interactive. So, now I'm going to show you another fixed element, but I'm going to show you now how to make it stay in the center. The final property I'm going to show you today is z-index. It might sound complicated, but it's just quite simple. It shows what elements go on top of other elements using a number-based system. Because at the moment you'll see that these elements go on top of the element 3 navigation bar, but I want the nav bar to always stay at the top. So I can change this using z-indexes. I can even make element 4 go under element 3. Even if I want to, I can make element 2 go underneath the text. So the way I do that is I have to assign a z-index to my elements. The larger the z-index, it will go on top, and if it's a smaller z-index, it will go underneath. The default z-index for the body is 0. So say I want element 3 to stay on top. So I can assign it a z-index, say for example, z-index of 5. So stay on top, z-index 5. Anything with a smaller z-index of 5 will go underneath it, and at the moment everything else has a z-index of 0. So now you'll see that they go underneath element 3. But say I want to do more. Say I want to make element 4 go on top of element 3. I have to make an even higher z-index. So, on top of E3, I can give it a z-index of 6. And now you'll see that element 4 goes on top of element 3. At the moment you'll see that element 2 is over element 1. So if I want element 2 to go behind element 1, I can assign another z-index to element 1. I'm going to make that go, say, in front of E2. And the z-index is going to be 4. So now you'll see, because this is default 0, that goes on top. So you'll see we're making different elements go on top of each other using z-index. But what if I want some elements to even go behind the text? Well, we know by default that the text is z-index 0. So I have to use a negative number to make an element go behind the text. So I'm going to make element 2 go behind the text. So I'm going to add a comment here just saying behind the text, so you know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to add a z-index of -1. There. There aren't any limits with z-indexes, so if I want to, I can make the z-indexes very large, very small, even negative numbers. So probably making an element go behind text isn't very useful in normal websites, but it shows you that you can use negative z-indexes. So, we've learned a lot today, from positioning, shaping, putting elements in front of each other and behind each other, creating rounded corners, click paths, positions, nav bars. We've learned a lot. I hope you enjoyed my video, and please like and subscribe if you want more. Thank you and goodbye.